Arun, Senthil, you may start
Sir.
now. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes,
Start.
sir.
Sir, start பண்ணலாமா sir?
Sir, time I start.
Okay. You can start now.
So once again, sir. Sir, am I audible, sir? Arun, sir?
Yes, sir.
Yes, Senthil. Yes, Senthil. Audible.
Okay, thank you. Very good morning, one and all connected here. I just want to start this program with a quote. Learning experiences are like journeys. The journey starts where the learning is now and ends where the learner is more successful. The end of the journey isn't knowing more, it's doing more. I welcome you all for this one-day workshop on deep learning for data analytics, conducted by Department of Computer Science and Engineering, RMK College of Engineering and Technology. Some people look for a beautiful place, others make a place beautiful. Now I request Professor Dr. M. Vijilsan Prem sir to deliver the welcome address. Sir, please.
Thank you, sir. Good morning to all of you, and I feel very happy to meet you all through this one-day workshop on deep learning and data analytics. So first of all, I would like to make a note of the support as well as encouragement extended by our management team, followed by our principal, Dr. K. Ramar, and our Dean Research, Dr. K. Sivaram. So with their support and encouragement only, we are able to conduct workshops like this for the benefit of the staff throughout the state. So I would like to thank them initially. And as far as this workshop is considered, I would like to welcome today's speaker as well as guest, Dr. Benita Anthony. Also, I would like to welcome our beloved HOD sir, Professor, Head of the Department, Department of Computer Science and Engineering, RMK College of Engineering and Technology. Also, I would like to welcome another resource person who will join a little bit later, Professor Robin Rennie, who is a data analytics. Also, I would like to thank and welcome the organizers of this workshop, Mr. Rajin Paul, Mr. Arun Manikaraja, and Mr. Chandil Prakash. And I would like to welcome all the participants throughout the state for the benefit of having a knowledge about deep learning and data analytics. I hope this workshop is going to be useful for all of you. In that note, I would like to wish you all the best for the better learning experience under the topic deep learning and data analytics. Once again, I would like to welcome you all to this workshop. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Success isn't always about greatness, it's about consistency. Consistent hard work gains success. Now I request our HOD, Dr. D. Balraj sir, to deliver the presidential address. Sir, please.
Thank you, Arun. Very good morning to all of you. Today's first session resource person, Dr. Bettina Anthony, and my dear colleagues and my dearest participants. Really, indeed, a very good chance that I asked our staff to organize a workshop, one-day workshop. There was not a big discussion about the topic, but immediately that people fixed deep learning because this is the hot topic and the need of the hour. And immediately they all have arranged the resource people also. So telling about these people, Bettina Anthony was a good speaker. She used to deliver lecture notes on different platforms and different colleges as well. And we organized this program. At the end of this program, definitely I am assuring you all that at the end you are motivated to write a paper. I cannot assure, I cannot say within a day we cannot do, we can do a lot of things, but at least at the end of this day, definitely you will feel that you can write a paper based on this deep learning, and there is a lot of scope in this area as well. So starting with the introduction about the deep learning, and I hope Dr. Benita Antony will explain in depth about the fundamentals of deep learning, how we can set the neural networks, everything she will explain, followed by the next resource person from industry, Mr. Robin Rennie, is the data scientist. He will explain the different algorithms, how we can execute these fundamental into an algorithms, and how we can frame your basic neural networks to for different applications. Afternoon session, definitely you will enjoy online coding. We have sent the instruction to install the software, everything. So I hope you have installed everything. So afternoon session, you will implement what these people have taught in the forenoon session. That's what I told at the end of this day. Definitely you will be motivated to write a paper at least and publish, because every college, they are asking us to write the paper, because that is part of our duty as well. We have to publish paper periodically. That will upgrade our profile, and it will give the credit to your department as well. And another thing I wanted to say is, this program, what all the colleges should arrange, because we people also used to join other colleges, because we are in the same community. This will grow the relation between us. So through this media and through this program, such type of programs, we can maintain our relation, and we can have a good relation, so that we can share our thoughts, we can share our knowledge, we can share our ideas, so that the research will grow up. So collectively we can publish paper as well. This is what the intention of this program. That's what we have organized program in deep learning. Definitely, I hope we are just behind the technology growth, because technology went to the next level, computer vision as well, and augmented reality. All these things are going up. So we have to move forward. So let this be the beginning, and definitely next we will arrange a program on computer vision also. That is what the world is moving up, and there is a lot of scope in this area, because previously we had only computer science and engineering. Nowadays, the allied courses like artificial intelligence and data science, artificial intelligence and machine learning, artificial intelligence and deep learning, all these branches started to come, because this is not the first area. The people are creating a department, separate department for this type of program as well. So it is our duty to update ourselves. This is what the intention behind the arranging of such a program. Hope all the colleges will have a program called artificial intelligence in data science, or artificial intelligence machine learning. So artificial intelligence is a mandatory course. Every college is having that one. So this program definitely will give a fundamental idea to the middle knowledge about this about the deep learning. So deep learning definitely will help you to write a paper, or you can understand, you can teach the people about the deep learning algorithms as well. So hope definitely at the end of this program you will enjoy, and you will have your own idea to implement some algorithms, and you can take your own application and implement. So as our professors are said, I really wanted to thank our management. Whenever we decided to conduct a program, they immediately encourage us to do so. So in that, I wanted to thank our management, principal and dean sir, for their encouragement and support to start this program and implement this program. So again, I wanted to convey my thanks, sincere thanks to the organizers, Mr. Arun Manikaraja, Mr. Sendil Prakash, and Mr. Regin Paul, for their effort. I think within 5 days they have arranged everything. Everything they have contacted you. And yesterday they told me around 100 and odd participants have registered. So hopefully they also will join. So within 3-4 days, collecting all these people, reaching you people is very interesting. How they have done, even I don't know, but their interest have yielded the benefit. With this, I will conclude my speech. Afternoon session we will see. So I wish you all the best. Have a fruitful day ahead. Thank you. Thank you very much.
So thank you, sir. Anyone who stops learning is old, whether at 20 or 80. Anyone who keeps learning stays young. Now I request my colleague, Mr. M. Arun Manikaraja, to introduce our guest. Sir, please.
Yeah, yes. So very good morning to one and all joined here. So now I would like to introduce about the speaker, Dr. J. Bettina Anthony, so working as an associate professor in SSN College of Engineering, Chennai. So let me introduce the brief profile about Madam. Dr. J. Bettina Anthony finished her bachelor's in computer science and engineering from SSN College of Engineering and did her post-graduation in software engineering from College of Engineering, Guindy, Anna University, for which Madam has secured gold medal for being the first rank holder. Though getting placed in reputed organizations like CTS, Infosys, and Accenture, she decided to follow her passion for teaching. Madam has secured her PhD in full-time mode from College of Engineering, Guindy, Anna University, Chennai. So specialization in the field of natural language processing. So Madam has worked in Panimalar Institute of Technology for 2 years. She is currently working as Associate Professor in SSN College of Engineering, Chennai. Madam has presented many papers in national and international conferences and has works published in various international journals. Madam has good publications with the citations of 42 and H index of 4. Madam has been part of various Tamil lyrics related NLP projects in Anna University. She has also worked as a corporate trainer in Wipro. So her current research areas include machine learning, natural language processing, text mining, and data mining. So with this rich expertise, we are very sure that Madam will share her knowledge on deep learning. We hope all the participants will get benefited out of it. So thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Talent hits a target no one else can hit. Expert hits a target no one else can see. Now I call upon our guest, Dr. J. Bettina Anthony, ma'am, to deliver the keynote address. Ma'am, please.
So thank you for having me here. So on behalf of the management, thank you especially for the management for calling me upon to share my knowledge on the topic. So to give a brief introduction about the topic that we are going to see today, the buzzword is deep learning. And now currently people are coming to know about data analytics and data scientists and stuff like that. So what is this deep learning that we are so many people are talking about? So basically the data in the world today is growing. So initially some 10 years ago your pictures were just small pixels with size lesser than few MBs, okay, and now a few KBs. Now a single DSLR picture can be of size 12 to 14 MB, and imagine uploading this online without losing the resolutions and stuff. So imagine so many pictures, so many millions and billions and trillions of images that are floating around us in the clouds. So to even download such an image or to download a specific type of image, there needs to be certain type of filtration, there needs to be certain type of segmentation, there needs to be certain type of segregation, and finally you land up with your expected result. Now all these segmentations, the filtration stuffs, all these will take up so much space in whether it is hardware, so much time when computation and so on. So we are looking for we have data in hand and we are looking for computational resources all around us. Now deep learning is one such computation that will help us to achieve all this with a minimum time effort, with probably reduced computational space, and finally with an accurate result. So that is where this deep learning is coming into picture. We will see where we started with deep learning, where are we right now, and how did it evolve into something so on with the in the initial section. But I think deep learning, or I am pretty sure that deep learning is the future right now when in the field of artificial intelligence, not just in the field of research, not just in the field of academics, not just in the fields of say medical, military. It is taking the space in our day-to-day lives. It is coming into our simple life right from starting, right from a smart alarm clock that wakes us up to the sound system that puts us to sleep. our deep learning is coming into picture and is going to change the world right in front of us before we actually realize it. So I think this workshop is going to be one of the most important stuffs that you're going to learn, and I hope you will understand that everything stuff that we are going to do today is going to affect us in the near future. So let's proceed. I think with that, can I go into the session for today? Is that okay?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So I hope I'll touch upon the topics of importance of deep learning from a very layman perspective. So I'm not going to go into it in a technical perspective or implementation part and so on, but because you already have sessions for that. But what I will try to do is that to give you a basic introduction of what deep learning is, what are the different modules that are involved in deep learning, and how you can handle it. Okay, so shall I share my screen? I think
ma'am.
I'll
Yes,
share
madam.
yes. One second. Oh, not okay, ma. I think I've got it. Yes. So I hope my screen is visible.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So we'll just go into the slideshow mode. So before we start, like I already thanked the management for having me here. A small introduction about me. I'm an assistant professor at SSN College of Engineering. So I think I did my research in full time. So I did not have so much experience in teaching as such, or I'm gaining it as such, but I think I have some knowledge in research perspective. So before we actually start, I was told that your topic for the day will be on deep learning and introduction. So basically, it's going to be an introduction session. You don't have to go into the technical part, or you don't have a hands-on session and all that. I was pretty happy when the coordinators told me this. But again, after some time, I got a little tense because you're going to start your entire day of the workshop from the introduction. So if your introduction is good, if you are able to take home something out of this introduction part, only then you will be able to concentrate on the next part, or you will be eager to know what next. So now this part of introducing deep learning has become a kind of challenging task for me, and I hope I will do my best to give out the basic introduction to it. Now, before we start, let me just ask you, see if the participants, there are, I think, 60 plus participants here. Let me see how many of you all are actually paying attention. And because I have already been, I've also been at home and attended sessions where I like switch on the Google Meet and then go cook or do other works. So I just want to make sure that even though you're doing other works, at least your ears are with me. Okay, so how many of you all can raise your hands if you have finished your breakfast? Can I see raise of hands? Only 2? I heard only 2. Okay, I think I'm assuming that because I'm in full screen mode, I'm assuming that there are few raised hands. Okay, so it's okay if you're like listening to the lecture and also having your breakfast simultaneously. I don't mind. Okay, as long as you're basically listening. Okay, so basically the agenda for today is going to be this simple. So I have 1.5 hours in hand, and I'm going to try to incorporate some knowledge about deep learning, some interest in the word called deep learning, so that you can probably pursue this in your research. You can also guide your UG and PG students in this particular field, or you will at least come to know something about it, because I am pretty sure in another 2 or 3 regulations, deep learning will become a main topic, main subject in your syllabus. So what are we going to see in today's session, 1.5 hour session? We are going to basically introduce every aspect of it. So usually when I study something, I would like to know the history behind it to continue it, so that in future we don't we go somewhere instead of just blindly rotating. So I would always give an introduction for the basic topics that's going to be involved. And then now we'll move on to the deep learning as such, what deep learning is, why are we using it, where are we using it, how are we using it. And I'm going to introduce a few algorithms here, I would say just three main algorithms. Because these algorithms are buzz terms, that is, you take any research paper on deep learning, you will hear this term called concurrent neural network, RNN, LSTM, and stuffs like that. So I'll just introduce what are the steps involved in the algorithm, and a general introduction to few frameworks that are used in today's situation. Okay, so we'll start with the introduction. Now, I think we have seen so many, not many Tamil movies that talk about artificial intelligence, except for say Endran and stuff. But there are a number of movies that are talking about artificial intelligence in the Hollywood. Okay, so I think Will Smith, one of the famous actors, had done a movie called iRobo, where the robots, which are personal assistants, try to take over the world and control the world. And then there is this movie called Her, which mainly deals with Siri, the personal, your psychological friend who can act as your companion, where in fact the movie will be talking about replacing your relationship with a human being to a machine. So people have started thinking in that range, where artificial intelligence is going to take up your day-to-day life, your day-to-day relationship as such. Okay, and there are the movie called Transcendence. It talks about you living, your soul leaving your physical body and taking up a machine. So imagine the amount of the amount of imagination people are having, amount of vision they have for machines in the future that are shown in these movies. So many different movies are coming into picture when we talk about artificial intelligence. In all these cases, we are talking about training a machine to act in like a human. Okay, think like a human, behave like a human, emote like a human. So where did this artificial intelligence officially start? Okay, so basically the start of artificial intelligence, or the word artificial intelligence itself, came into picture in 1956, where they organized a summer camp. Okay, even in our today's life, if we have the 1 month in summer, we'll probably take a vacation and we'll go outside our academic life, and we go to our personal life. Whereas there they have these summer schools that are extensively working on building new things in the field of academics. Okay, so one such summer research program was held in 1956 in Dartmouth College. Okay, so what happened here was a group of people joined together, and they started to have an idea that if you can put something that you're thinking into words, you can definitely make a machine work on it or do it. Okay, if you can put whatever I'm thinking, whatever, say for example, today afternoon, this is what I'm going to cook. If you're going to put down these set of information in the form of words, you can very well make a machine also to do it. Okay, so this is what their idea of it was. Okay, this the second picture was actually taken 50 years later in 2006, and this person here.
Excuse me, ma'am.
Yes.
Ma'am,
Yes.
so kindly make a presentation in full screen mode, madam.
Actually, the PPT is not
Okay,
moving. It is still in the first slide itself.
Okay. Yes. Did it move now?
The presentation is gone, madam.
Yes, sir. Is it visible now, sir?
Yes, ma'am. Now we are in
So
third
you
slide.
can make it full
Okay.
screen.
Yeah. I hope this is visible now. Is it moving? My my screen is
visible.
moving.
Make it full screen, and then you can.
I think I've made it full screen, sir. But is it visible now, sir?
Well,
Is my screen moving?
Just press F5.
Okay.
F5 key, function 5.
Ma'am, sir, actually the window is in full screen for me, but I think it's not sharing there. Okay,
Yeah, yeah.
what I'll do is I'll share my entire screen itself. That will be much better, I think. Okay. Is my entire screen visible now? Okay, I think I can. Entire screen is visible, so I'll make this.
Yes.
Okay, now when I go into the full screen mode, is it visible now?
Full screen. Just move, madam.
visible.
We will see. Yes, moving. Right.
Okay, yes. Okay,
Yes,
perfect.
madam. Yes.
Okay, so this was the start of artificial intelligence. These people, these brains out here, they devised what we are going to call as artificial intelligence. Now, this was a reunion that they had 50 years later, and this person here, John McCarthy, was the one who termed who termed the word called artificial intelligence. Now, certain snippets from the summer research project, you can see that this is the main point here. So what they decided that every aspect of learning of any feature of intelligence can in principle be so precisely described that a machine can be made to simulate it. Meaning anything that you think, if you can precisely describe it, then the machine can also do it. Okay, anything that you have, probably say for example, as I already told you, it's a very good example, what you want to cook. So when someone thinks, okay, that's what we usually think, women here. So what will happen was, we'll first think, what did we have for in the morning? Okay, is there something that is left out? Or we'll think about, what did we have yesterday? We don't want to repeat, or the husbands in the house do not want to repeat repetitive recipes. So we'll think of something that we did, say probably 2 or 3 days before, and we'll check for the ingredients at home. If we have enough ingredients, and if we have enough time, and we have not done it in the recent past, we'll go and continue and do it. Okay, step-by-step recipe that you can do. Now, this thinking process, I have put it down in the form of words. Okay, if I can feed my machine to look for all these factors, say for example, look for the factor, what did you have in the morning? Look for the factor, what did you have in the previous day? Are you ready to repeat it? Factor, yes or no? And then you have another feature, what do you have in your refrigerator? Do you have the necessary vegetables and stuffs? Or do you have the necessary grocery items? Yes, I do. All the check boxes tick yes. Then you can proceed and start cooking. Okay, so anything that you can put into words, anything for that matter, even the way you emote your emotions and stuffs, if you can put it into words, then a machine can easily do it. So this is the idea behind their Dartmouth project. Now, there are so many other points that are involved there. There are a few points that I want to highlight. Even at 1956 itself, they were able to coin the term called neuron networks. Okay, neuron networks or neuron nets. So they were in the position that you can imitate the way your brain cells thinks. Okay, people who, I think you might have already known that brain cells are also called as neurons. So every nerve is made up of millions and trillions sets of neurons that pass the signal from one point to another. Okay, so what they came up with, the term is that if you can imitate this neuron network in a machine, then the machine can easily stimulate the activities of a human. So this was taught, the word neuron network was taught in 1956 itself. The other different ideas behind that is that you have your own feedback network, where you try to give reinforcement or try to pat the machine and tell it whether it's doing the correct process or the next process, and you move forward. And then there's also the concept of randomness and creativity, which is the major difference between a human and a machine. Now, human can do something like on the blink of an eye, you can change the decisions that you make. Can your machine also do that? Okay, so you have to, you are trying to devise a machine as as close as to a human's thinking as possible. And one such aspect that comes into picture is the randomness and creativity. So all these were the main topics that were dealt in the summer project in 1956, which started the which paved way for the starting of artificial intelligence. Now you can see a timeline here. There are so many different timelines of where we are today, where we started in the field of computer science, and where we are today. This timeline, obviously, I've taken from the internet, but this timeline I am very concerned because it is going to talk about deep learning as such. So we'll just start with where it all started. Okay, so initial computer, we started with the Turing machine, where every operation in a machine can be done using a tape. Okay, you have the input, you can make the tape move right or left and do a particular operation. So based on that, you will be provided with the output. So this was the start of any machine. Then we went on to the machine learning, though the exact word of machine learning was not, we do not know when it was coined, but the idea of machine learning started around 1950, where we were trying to tell that don't just give an input and expect an output, try to make the machine understand from its own mistakes. So that was start of machine learning somewhere in 1956. Then we had the Dartmouth College workshop, where I already told you the artificial intelligence was formed. And then in around 1962 itself, it's like nearly from today, some 60 years ago itself, we were able to turn the coin called perceptron. Perceptron is nothing but a set of inputs is given to a hidden layer or a layer of computation from which the output is perceived. Okay, so the perceptron was coined by one scientist called Frank Bosenhoff, I think. Okay, he was the one who said that he was mainly his research work was trying to show that every human thinking process can be put into words, which is similar to your neuron material. Okay, but what happened was there was too many restrictions there. So here you can see the perceptrons can do so many different activities that is similar to human, and which means learning, which you can either make decisions, you can translate a language, and much more. Okay, but his research work saw a kind of disadvantage, or saw a limitation around the period of 1969. Okay, so what happened there was it had too many restrictions, too many computational complexities, that people started to question whether this perceptron concept is going to work or not. So around the period of 70 to 80, there it is called as AI winter. Okay, so basically not in our country, but then in the foreign countries, winter is a time where not many operations happen because it's really cold. So it's similar to that. This period of a decade from 1970 to 80 was considered as a winter period in AI, because there was not many improvement, not many development in the field of machine learning, or anything for that matter. So again, in the year of 1985, neural networks were starting to bloom again. Okay, but not fully blooming, but they started to come up. And in the year 1986 to 89, not very clear, the first person coined the term called convolutional neural network. So where this convolutional general meaning of convolution is that you're making something tighter, closer, and little more bounded together. Okay, so the term called convolutional neural network came into picture in that 1989. However, we were having algorithm in hands, but we were not having enough data to train this algorithm. The data that we had in hand was so little that other machine learning algorithms like SVM or decision trees were enough to give you better results when compared to the CNN model. So this CNN model is again going into the shelf, where its information or where its use is not mainly known. So finally, in the after the year of 2005, when the data started pouring in exponentially, that people started, you had the social media burst where you can share your images, you have messages people sending out, and tweets, though it's just like 120 characters, you were getting millions and millions of tweets, because people were having so much in mind and they wanted to put it down in words, and then they started sending out tweets. The amount of data that started to gather became very exponential, that now we are having data in hand, but not a proper algorithm to handle the data. So that is where your concept of deep learning started to take a picture, take importance there. So around the year of 2000, I would say 2008 itself, you can 2006 to 8 itself, you can see papers talking about these CNN, RNN, LSTM. Okay, and so full-fledged works have started from the 2010, and now you can see, I think most of you are working in engineering colleges will see that most of your final year projects will be talking about deep learning in natural language processing, deep learning in image processing, deep learning in speech processing, deep learning and so many other different works. Recently I was seeing a call for paper where deep learning is going to be applied for 6G technology and also so on. So basically, deep learning is taking its placing its tentacles in different areas of research. So we'll just try to see what this deep learning as such is about, so that we will know about how to use it in different fields. So as I already told you, the initial starting of your artificial intelligence, starting off your computer life started with the Turing machine. So Turing machine, he has this idea. Okay, he has this test. Okay, we can call it a test, Turing test. There is an interrogator, a person who asks questions. He's placed in the different room, and in this room there are two personalities, a male and a female. Now the interrogator can ask n number of questions. He just has to identify whether A is a male or B is a male. A is a male, B is female, or B is male, A is female. So he's asking n number of questions. So you can, example, you can ask what color is your hair or eyes, or what is the length of your hair, or something like that. Okay, so you, based on the questions that you ask, you can be able to identify this person is belonging to so and so label. Now, the same condition applied to the AI systems. That is what we are doing for, say, decades and decades of testing, where we are going to send out information that you send to a human, and then you send it to the machine, and you're checking whether your machine is able to replicate whatever the human is doing. So the technical term for this, we are calling it as expert systems. Okay, so this is where we are, this is how we are starting to test an intelligent system. So once you're testing an intelligent system, there are two types of results that you get. Okay, then you have the deductive reasoning, and then you have the inductive reasoning. So two types of reasoning, or two types of output from the way you process a method. Okay, now I'm not going into the information here. You will just see an example. Now, deductive reasoning is that top-down approach, meaning you will check for few questions. If the questions are true, then probably the conclusion will also be true. Okay, or question, I won't say question, or say statements or premises are true, then probably your conclusion will also be true. Okay, so this is an example here. All men are mortal. Okay, this is the first premises. Socrates is a man. Second premises. So therefore, the conclusion that Socrates is also mortal is a true condition, meaning Socrates is a person, he's a man is a category of men, so since men are mortal, then Socrates is also mortal. So this type of reasoning can be taught to your machine. So if this feature is yes, this feature is also yes, then go and do this. This conclusion will probably give you accurate results. This is your deductive reasoning. Whereas, or testing your, building your system. Whereas you also have the inductive reasoning, which is the basis of machine learning, where you tell your system this is right, and you keep doing it again and again and again, and try to prove it using proofs or evidences. Say, for example, the coin I pulled out of the bag is a penny. Okay, so one is a coin, one is a penny. Then I pull out another coin that is also a penny, and then I keep pulling out, say, 3 or 4 coins which are penny. So I come to a conclusion that the bag is full of only pennies, no notes. Okay, so I can, I can prove the statement as true by going about with more and more proofs or more and more samples. Okay, so this is the idea behind machine learning. So generally when you're going to test a machine system, there are two types of concluding or knowing that the system is right or wrong, either by deductive reasoning or inductive reasoning. So this is just an example of one of the artificial intelligence system, which is IBM Watson, which was created in the late 90s. I think it was a question answering system where when you are given with a question, it will search for its evidences. Out of the evidences, it will try to calculate a proper score. Okay, so you give a question. The question is first decomposed. It is getting an answer from the primary answer source, and it is trying to make the answer stronger by the evidences that I have, and then it is probably giving me an output. So basically, your IBM system, a question answering system, basically you just ask a question: what is the national bird of India? And then it looks for answers from its repository. It not just gives you an answer, it makes sure that the answer is right using the evidence sources, and then it gives you a confirmed answer. Or it will give you an answer with a probability value, will tell you how much percentage I am confident that this is the answer for this question. Okay, so this level of thinking would have been possible only because of a particular type of neural network involved inside. Okay, so if you can think, okay, if someone asks you a question, you will not just blurt out the answer that comes to your mind. You will think for a second whether this answer is right or wrong before telling it, right? This type of processing, that 1 second of processing, in order to put that into a system, imagine the amount of complexities that are involved. Okay, so this is the idea behind why I chose IBM Watson as an example for artificial intelligence, is that this basically, this mainly used deep learning before it was actually a thing. Okay, so the IBM system is like this. Okay, so this is just the processing part of it. So you have so many features that are given. You will fill out the values for the feature from the information that you have. So say, for example, you're looking for a movie's name. All you know is that this movie was derived from a book that was written by Joseph Conrad, and it was written in the year 1902. Okay, so I know that the author is here. I know the publication date and what it is talking about. It is talking about Africa. I want to know the name of the movie that is talking about all these. So once you fill out these slots, you will come to a conclusion of, or you can be able to retrieve an information which is further enhanced using an evidence process to give you the answer, saying that the movie that you're searching for is Francis Ford Coppola. Okay, so this is the idea behind that. So none of the areas that we have seen so far is talking about deep learning. So please bear with me. We are still in the introduction. So the other places of artificial intelligence, as you can see, there are pictures where you can point the picture and it will tell you what is your age, whether you're a male or a female. Then you have these robots that are actually in practice. I think the cleaning robot is about 5,000 to 10,000, where you have the robot that goes on cleaning small dirts from the screen. It will go, if it faces a wall, it will just turn around and it will go. Okay, so if it faces an obstacle, it just moves path and it can do that. Okay, so this is the one such intelligence. Then there is the Sophia, which was trying to be a human, a humanoid, which try to imitate how a human being is. And then you have smart refrigerators, smart TVs, smart washing machine and stuff like that. All these are talking about artificial intelligence. So before we actually know it, we are actually using artificial intelligence in our day-to-day life. So now we are moving on to the next concept. We are going to a more academic or research perspective of what we are talking about. So artificial intelligence has this subcategory called as machine learning. I think most of you all might have, machine learning has become a done and dusted kind of field, where we already know, instead of giving an input and output, we are trying to give, instead of giving an input and program and trying to receive an output, we are going to give an input and output and tell the system what to do. Okay, so based on experience, based on the amount of beatings that it gets, it will try to improve itself. At some point, it will give you a better result. Okay, so this is the idea behind machine learning. So general definition of machine learning is that the ability of a learning machine to perform accurately on new unseen example based on the experience it has gained from the learning data set. So all these are like basic introductions, so I'm not going into much of it. Okay, so this is the basic diagram that we see everywhere when we talk about machine learning. So when we have a data and a program, and we get an output, that is traditional programming. Whereas we have the data and the output, and we are trying to get the program that is helping me to do this, or helping the input to be transferred to the output, that is called as machine learning. So so this is the general okay, one second. Sorry. Okay, so this is the idea behind that. A more detailed explanation of machine learning, where you have the input data. Data is converted into feature vectors. Then you have the output labels that you expect out of the system. So once you combine these two to the machine algorithm, you get a predictive model that can help you in identifying new data and provide with an expected label. So this is the idea behind machine learning. I'm not talking about machine learning much because we have, we are not going to deal with that so much. So we're just giving an introduction to machine learning. Now, machine learning can be approached by various approaches. You have the decision tree, where you can use tree to make decisions, and the branching of tree is done using entropy values and so on. You have artificial neural networks. You have support vector machine, where a linear algorithm is used to classify whether this is this or that, and so on. Okay. Now, our idea or our aim or our focus is on artificial neural networks. So we are moving on to the next concept. We are kind of nearing to our introduction to deep learning. I hope we are having enough time. Yes. So what is this neural network that we are talking about? So people who are already biology students in your 12th standard, even though it would have been years since you have finished, you would at least remember this diagram that we draw. Okay. So this is the cell body. And then this is the axons, and this is we don't need the terminologies. Don't try to remember stuff that is not necessary. Okay. So this is basically a neuron. Every information from the brain, okay, will be passed on by the neurons in the connection. Okay. So now this cell body is the one which decides what to do. Okay. So in case certain information from the brain needs to reach, say, for example, lift your finger. Okay. So the signal as lift your finger, lift your finger, lift your finger, lift your finger will pass on to the neurons and to the finger, and finally you are lifting the finger. Okay. So the neurons here will know that you have to lift the finger or move the finger, whereas this part of the somewhere neuron somewhere in your neck or forearm will not know what a finger is. So the purpose of that finger, that neuron, is to just send out the information. Okay. So similarly, your neural network is made up of so many hidden layers. Each layer has a particular operation to perform. Okay. So the first layer can do some function, the second layer will do certain function, and the ones that are nearing the output will do the decision making function, and so on. So this is the idea behind a neural network. So why we are simulating the human brain? We are trying to send out signals. We are trying to provide it with extra weights or biases and so on, and then we are coming up with certain type of function. I'm not defining the function here yet. I'm just telling you certain type of function. In the certain type of function, abdindra vartha is very vague. I can understand. The first time I saw neural network, that was the only thing that I could understand. Okay, there's a function inside, but what is this function doing? Why this function? How this function? How did they even come up with such a function? What are these people thinking, mathematicians thinking? That was my question. So I'll just put it as a vague function here. I will tell you what these functions are as we go forward. Okay. So we have the input, we have the weight and bias and so on, certain extra parameters that we set. Once the function is applied to these weight and input and so on, we are able to come up with an output, or probably a probability for the output, and based on the probability we will be able to determine whether it belongs to so and so label. Okay, so this is the idea behind neural network. I hope I am still with you, and I hope people who have not had your breakfast might have had it. And now we are almost reaching to the topic of introduction to deep learning, so I hope now you can come and listen. Okay, so we have the neural network. I told you this is the general flow of events for an artificial neural network, where we have the input, we have a hidden layer which is doing some mysterious functions there, and based on the mystery that is happening, you are able to come to a conclusion which is the output. Okay, now this mystery function can be actually classified into two. Okay, the two types of function, okay, divided into two functions. Okay, so initially you have your input, you have the first step which is a transfer function, and the second step which is an activation function. Okay, now this transfer function and the activation function together will combine and transfer your input into an output. Okay, now please pay attention, because transfer function and activation function is the only difference between the different ANN, CNN, RNN, LSTM, and stuff like that. Other basic neural network functions. Okay, so what is this transfer function and what is this activation function? Usually, you give in a data or input to the system, to your artificial neural network. So any machine learning system, you will give it certain information. Okay, and what will happen is you will try to give other extra information also say for example, in the cooking example itself, my actual input was that I need to cook. Okay, I need to cook, and try certain other information that we are providing is with the information of what is there at home, or what did we cook yesterday, or what is the idea that we have in mind, whether non-veg or veg, and so on. And the output was whether what we are going to cook. So label. Okay, basically label. Okay, you can also have other information like picture classification. So if you show a picture of a dog and you show this is a cat, so whether this classification is right or wrong, that is one operation you can have. You can have other operations of translation and so on. Okay, so many input is given. You are also providing it with hidden information also. Now what happens in your neural network is that, which is different from the other machine learnings, is that it is trying to devise two functions inside. One is the transfer function and the other one is the activation function. Now, transfer function is the one that will change your input and make it according to its, to the neural network's processing unit. Okay, so say for example, if I send an input in the form of a matrix which is of size 1000 cross 1000, and my activation function, my weight, and so on is in a much lesser dimensionality, this transfer function will do certain operations, certain filtration operations, say multiplications. You can have repeated multiplication, segmentation, and so on, that will change your input into a more complex or more simpler form of an input. Okay, so this transfer function differs with different algorithms. CNN, it will be different. For RNN, it will be different. But everywhere, certain operation will happen so that the input is changed into a more useful or more computational model. That is the first step. Now, the second step is nothing but you are introducing an activation function. Now, this activation function is something that you don't see in other type of machine learning algorithms. Now, say for example, in your decision tree or in your SVM or in your HMM model, HMM is hidden Markov model, the transfer function can apply to some extent, okay, where we are trying to bring out all the dimensionality of the input into a particular factor. Whereas you will never see the concept of activation function, not many places. I won't say never in any of the machine learning algorithms, but not in many places. This is very a unique feature in your neural networks, because this activation function is preparing your system for unpredictable data. Okay, so it is making your system from a linear function to a non-linear function. I'm talking technical terms, please bear with me. The linearity is that straight up pona straight dhaan poite irukkanum. Okay, so sometimes you will be given with data that is not always straight. Okay, it can come from different directions. So how will you prepare your system to handle these information? Maybe you do not have an output for the different input, but at least you have to prepare your system to not crash under such input, right? So that type of information or that type of preparation of the system is done by the activation function. Okay, so so this is where I mean these two factors are going to be present in all of your neural network algorithms. Okay, so the first one is your transfer function, where your input is transferred into a more computable format, whereas the activation, yes, hello, okay, I think someone unmuted. Okay, whereas your activation function is the one which is going to prepare you for a more diverse set type of unexpected type of input. So once you are provided with these two type of functions, your functions combine together and give you with the proper output label. Okay, sometimes it can be probability of the output label, sometimes it can be the actual output as such. So this is the general flow in an ANN diagram. Okay, so we are somewhere here. I think we are almost reaching to the topic for today, which is we have seen artificial intelligence, we have seen machine learning, how we did it, we have seen neural network, how the computation happens, right? Now the deep learning is a integral part of this neural network. So let's go into the information of what is this deep learning. Okay, so basically, like we have already said, deep learning is something that is trying to imitate your human brain. Okay, but we are going to talk about it in terms of large amount of data. Now large in the sense, yeah, not something that you or I can imagine. It is like having data in your millionth, the Google's OOS page, up to the OOS page, the amount of images that you can get out of there. So much information is needed only for a single question of give me this. Okay, so as you can, I mean, I'm not just talking about image retrieval, you can also talk about, say, probably making decisions. Okay, so if I have an automated car and the car is driving on its own, and suddenly it is faced with an obstacle in the front. Okay, in order to decide what to do, whether to stop or whether to slow or whether to turn your steering wheel and you can still continue driving at the same speed, the decision can take up to millions of information before the actual decision is made. Okay, so millions of information, I'm talking about millions, trillions of information, then how, I mean, how do we do the computation here? There we have the answer as deep learning. Now deep learning, I'll tell you again, what is deep learning? When you have so much information in hand and you want a proper accurate computing solution to it, go for deep learning. Okay, blindly you can go for deep learning. So this is the idea here. So what is deep learning? You can say it as the place where a large amount of data, it can be computed efficiently, is your deep learning. So this is the idea here. How is this deep learning different from your traditional learning? So we saw just 2 or 3 slides ago what ANN was, what was the transfer function and activation function. Now the transfer and activation function happens in a single layer, then this is a simple neural network. If it happens in a n number of hidden layers, then this will form the deep neural network. N number of hidden layers. What is this n number of hidden layers? In each layer, you will do a particular transformation and you will do a particular activation. So you will try to transfer the data according to your system, and you're trying to prepare the data for unexpected input. You do it for the one layer. Now, when you move on to the next layer, you can have the next level of same preparation. Now you're preparing for a different type of input, more refined type of input. The next layer, you're preparing your data again for a much more prepared type of input. So when you keep refining your data again and again in all these hidden set of layers, you're finally coming up with an output which is very accurate because it has gone down so many refinement, and also certain the number of data, the amount of data was also be able to handle. It's like this. Okay, so certain, I mean, imagine your vaccination process. If there's only one line and then there are 1,000 people waiting for getting vaccinated, imagine the amount of time it's going to take. Okay, or sometimes the people will itself get tired and they'll like, we are going on a break, we'll come back later, and they'll go, the amount of breaks that you're going to get. Okay, so basically the process is delayed and you are getting an output slowly. Maybe you are getting the same type of output where all the people are vaccinated properly and all that, but still the amount of time and energy has been wasted. Instead of that, if we have, say, more set of counters, okay, for the 1,000 people, if we have, say, 10 counters, Okay, and the operation is the same type of operation, same type of injecting you, and same professionals are being used and all that. So the amount of time that is need to vaccinate such people will be highly reduced, right? So this concept is the main basis behind the deep learning. Even though you send out all the data to all the networks, there are certain type of refinement and certain type of filtering that happens level by level, and so that at the end, even though you have given with the humongous data, the output is similar to one done by the single op computational unit. That's the idea behind deep learning. So it usually goes for a layered approach. Okay, usually each hidden layer is assigned with a particular task, and it does that task perfectly, so that when you propagate forward or backward, the task is carried out properly, and finally you are given with an expected result with better accuracy and better computational time. So this is just an example of what happens. So basically, when you have a face recognition system, initially the first layer will try to recognize small pixels and small edges and shapes, and then it will put these shapes together to identify small parts of your actual body, and these parts will be decided as features. Okay, features that are used to define whether this is this person, and so on. And finally, in the layer, you are able to map these features to an actual data set at the back. Okay, now there are few things to note in this layered approach when I'm talking about deep learning. Okay, so I told you there are n number of images, and all these layers you will have so many neurons that are performing for each image. It will perform so and so operation, and each level there is a particular type of refinement that is happening. Okay, so this refinement is an important task that is carrying out functions to the next layer, and so on, and finally you are able to identify or come up with the result. Okay, so this layer approach I will show you in the future steps. Okay, each layer has a particular functionality. We'll just see about that in the future steps. Now deep learning has I'll say it's not exactly a replacement to machine learning, but it is trying to approach fields where machine learning is not performing so well. Okay, so how is this deep learning better, or why do we think we have to go for deep learning instead of machine learning? Okay, certain fields will have I think about 10 years ago, when we were doing research, there was this face recognition project where students were able to develop a system where students, when passing through a classroom door, when it will take the picture of the student, and it will try to identify that this person is so and so, and it give it automatic attendance system. Okay, so it will automatically give the attendance for the particular student. So initially 10 years ago, I think deep learning was not a big buzzword then. They were able to do so well with the normal machine learning algorithm itself. Okay, so why did we go for deep learning now? Okay, so certain ideas that need to be dealt with when we are talking about deep learning. Why is it supreme better than machine learning? There are few factors that we are going to consider. Okay, so the first factor that they are placing in terms of accuracy is that when the amount of data keeps increasing, machine learning will always reach a threshold. Okay, so say at some point you will be able to reach only a accuracy of 95 or 96%. You can't come to that 99.9% of accuracy, even though you provide with so many data you provide, because your machine learning can take up only certain type of differences in your system. Okay, so say for example, in machine learning you will tell, say, feature 1, this is taking up so and so value. You will say feature 2 can take up so and so value. So combining feature 1 and feature 2 in the machine learning algorithm, you will come up with an output. Now your feature 1 will have only a particular set of values, probably a particular range of values. Once you go beyond that, or even when you supply the amount of data more and more, the contrast of the feature does not change. ஓகே, ஸோ இது எப்படி இருக்குன்னா, இப்போ வந்து ஒரு நல்ல எக்ஸாம்பிள் சொல்லணும்னா, சே ஃபார் எக்ஸாம்பிள் ஐம் ட்ரைங் டு டிசைட் வெதர் அ பர்டிகுலர் லாங்குவேஜ் இஸ் பிலாங்கிங் டு இங்கிலீஷ் ஆர் தமிழ் ஆர் ஸோ ஆன். ஓகே, ஸோ இங்கிலீஷ்னு வச்சுப்போம். Okay, we have certain set of alphabets, the 26 alphabets. So you are reading a sentence, you are reading the word, you are reading the individual characters in the sentence, and each character can fall into only the 26 alphabets. Okay, so if it belongs to that alphabet, alphabet set, it is an English language. If it does not belong to the alphabet set, this probably is not an English word. That is what you are coming up with picture. So even if I throw in trillions and billions and trillions of words, at the end of the day, they all fall into the category of only 26 alphabets. So in this case, the machine learning itself has reached a particular threshold, so the efficiency of the system cannot be improved. Whereas when I tell you about a deep learning system, I tell you that certain features, certain values can go as far as 0.000000 some point, and you can still show differences. Like for example, if I have two pictures, one picture with a say some particular feature value, the pixel strength, picture color strength as 256.0000001 to something which has 256.01 is more brighter than the other picture. So the color white itself is different. So you can, come back to a HD print of the image, and you can come to minimum differences in the image, and you can provide a classification that these two images are different, even though their feature is very, very related. Now, this is the concept behind why the amount of information, as the amount of information increases, deep learning can perform better than machine learning, because machine learning has a threshold. It stops there. It will, though you keep increasing the amount of information that you have, the threshold value does not change. Whereas deep learning, it can keep changing to so many levels. So that's why deep learning is one of the trusted mechanisms for data that is of higher value. Similarly, we have the next difference between machine learning and deep learning. Now, machine learning, as I already told you, you have an input. In addition to the input and the computation model, you need to define the set of features. Like, say for example, in the cooking example itself, I was supposed to define these set of features as what I cooked yesterday, what is in my mind, what is in the fridge, and so on. Okay, whereas your deep learning network need not have these feature information. It will decide on the feature information on its own. Okay, it is going to take some time, but at least you are not provided with the headache of deciding what are the features. Like, say for example, if you take a child, and the child points out at random objects and it says cat. Okay, so if it points out at exactly at cat, and it shows that this is cat, you tell it, very good, it's a cat. And the next step, what you do is, when probably it will look at a car and it says cat. Okay, at that time you will correct it. No, that is not a cat, that is a car. That's not a cat. Okay, so it keeps looking at different objects, and it is able to identify which is cat and which is not cat based on your feedback. Okay, so after few wrong decisions, okay, it's going to take some time. After few wrong decisions, at some point it will know that, oh, cat, it should have an eyes, it should have 4 legs, it should have whiskers, and it probably says meow. Okay, so that is cat. So this processing that happened inside the child's brain, okay, that you need not know. You are not given with the headache of knowing what happens. I think someone else is talking. Okay, so you are not provided with the headache of knowing what happens. Okay, you just have to tell them this is right, this is wrong. They will figure out on its own. Okay, so this is an added advantage in deep learning. So imagine you're provided with the data, and you're also given the headache of deciding the type of features associated with it. Okay, certain features can be.
Madam
Roslyn, madam, so kindly mute your mic.
I can totally understand Mrs. Roslyn. Please, I hope she's muted. Okay, so I can totally understand, Miss Roslyn. You have a small kid. Obviously, they'll want your mobile, but hope you need not have to disturb the others for that. Okay, so thank you. Yes, we are continuing. Okay, so instead of giving the headache of the different features, certain features can be strong, certain features will be weak, certain features will be the decisive node, certain features are they don't make a difference in your decision process. So deciding what features to give and what features to avoid, wait for this feature, the bias factor for individual features and individual computation model, all these headache does not apply when it comes to deep learning, because you're already given with the headache of dealing with millions of data. So you don't have to worry about the features. Your system itself will be in a position to identify the features. Okay, all it's going to take is some time, but still your system is able to identify the features. So this is one more difference between a machine learning and a deep learning. The first one is the amount of data. As the amount of data increases, for deep learning the accuracy also increases, whereas for machine learning it reaches a particular threshold. And the second point is that in machine learning you have an added task of finding the necessary features for doing your operation, whereas in deep learning the feature extraction itself is done by the hidden layers. And the last step is you have modules, like you have to define modules, and the output of one module should be manually sent to the next step as input to the next module. So say for example, if I give a picture and I tell you to identify objects in the picture, now the deep learning will be able to segment different objects. It will be able to run the classification module, and it will tell you what is what. Okay, whereas when you talk about machine learning, you have to first have a separate module for first segmenting the different elements, and then the next module for comparing it with the already given repository, and the third step will be the one that is classifying that. Okay, so this step-by-step operation that we have to make sure that are in the correct order so that we get a proper output need not be considered in your deep learning. Your deep learning itself will do the operation for you. So these three are the main advantages of deep learning over machine learning. So there are few applications where deep learning are used in currently. There are so many different applications. 5 main applications are, first one is your self-driving car. Tesla is one famous company that is devising the self-driving car, where you can like simply ask your car to come in. Say for example, you have parked it somewhere in the distance and you want your car to come to you. Okay, you just have to press the necessary buttons in your mobile phones and your car will automatically drive and come. You also have a remote control mode where you can like drive your car. So all these thinking and deciding what to do is given to the computer. Say basically I'm just using the word thinking, right? The thinking itself will involve the deep learning networks. So when you're driving a car is an important factor. You're driving it in traffic, so you have to be a little more careful. So your output should be little more accurate, very accurate, little more very accurate. So you have to consider so many different features before you actually take one step forward, or before you change your gear and so on. So for so many information that is going to be processed in a short period of time, you definitely need a deep learning network. You also have sentiment analysis. Now in today's world, initially we were like aware of only say probably certain few words like good and bad. Is the movie good? Yes, it's good. The movie bad? Yeah, it's bad. Now it's like there are so many different words to even describe a single element. Say for example, if a product is, you're having a review for the product, no one tells you okay, this is a good product, this is a bad product anymore. They tell you it's like cool product, and they give up words like wow, love it. So what do they mean by love it? Do they recommend us to buy the product, or do they say only for their perspective? How do you decide on that? So that field is taking into account deep learning in the coming futures. That is sentiment analysis not just applies for a review of products. It's also talking about say how to approach in your future working. Say for example, if you do so and so, what is the next step you will probably do can also be decided using your deep learning network. Then we have the virtual assistants, which is like taking over our world. I think most of your houses must have Alexa, where like Alexa, play music, Alexa, what's the time, Alexa, what's the temple, and it's able to identify or get what you're asking, and it is able to respond to you. So that type of human thinking itself is coming into our day-to-day life, and thanks to deep learning they are becoming more and more accurate and more easy to use. Next we have social media. Social media also uses deep learning to a very great extent. Say for example, Instagram and all, it is able to identify from the comment section what is if it's a bot Okay, some bot spamming your post. In case of Facebook, I think this is one of the unwanted fields that we have, where you have the suggested for you, where based on one video that you see, there are n number of videos suggested for you, basically making you waste time. And finally, then you have your deep learning in the healthcare field, where we have number of wearable health medical appliances. You have the ones that is checking your constantly checking your blood glucose level or your pressure level. It can check your heartbeat and so on. Okay, so all these cases, the ones that are recording these information and the ones that is providing these information are making use of deep learning. So this is these are some of the applications where it is used. Now the applications are quite broad. So when you take up so many IoT applications today, they are going for deep learning also, so that we come up with a better solution. So all these things, I think most of your research students and your BE students might be doing projects on. Some other fields also are given here. So we are running out of time. I want to go into the actual algorithm. So I'm just running forward. So what is this deep learning? So deep learning, we have seen so far what is this deep learning, why we are using deep learning, where and all we are using deep learning. Now I'm going to tell you how. Now this is going to be very, very layman explanation. I think one of my students once told me this: teachers are nobody, but the ones who read the textbook 4 days before us. Okay, so I think he's to some point out of line, but still true. Okay, so the thing is, we try to, we are also learning from the internet, from the different books, which they can also do. But one thing that we can do but they cannot do is explain something in simple terms. Now this is what I'm going to do. I'm trying to put deep learning in simple terms and hope this will be helpful for the next sessions also. So the different steps involved in deep learning is going to be this. First, you try to understand the problem you have in hand. Okay, so the problem that you have in hand, you will try to identify what type of data that is given. You will try to identify the type of deep learning algorithm that will apply for this particular data, train the model, and then finally test the model. Okay, so second phase, okay, this I will show you in the coming slides. Okay, now as I already told you, there's only two phases. The first phase is your transformation phase, and the next phase is your derivative or activation phase. Okay, so the one thing that we see in deep learning will be the concept of iteration. These two phases are repeated again and again and again and again until a particular a satisfactory solution is reached. You are going to do these two operations. So there are so many different deep learning algorithms. Now, deep learning is just a general term. How we are carrying out deep learning, there are so many different algorithms. These are just some of the algorithms I have listed here. If the time permits, I want to show you what is CNN, what is RNN, and a part of LSTM. These here restricted Boltzmann machine autoencoders are unsupervised algorithm. Okay, I'll try to show autoencoders also. Okay, so we'll move on to these are the different. This is a beautiful diagram that they have shown. What is the difference between the different types of deep learning algorithm? Okay, so you can very well look into it. So without further ado, I'll go into the algorithm because I want to show what this algorithm is. Like I already told you, if you are like an expert in deep learning or you have already dealt with deep learning, this section is going to be a little old for you. But those who are new to this deep learning, I will try to put it in simple terms. Now, as I already told you, every deep learning has an input, hidden layers, and the output. Okay, now the hidden layers is different for different deep learning algorithm. We are going to see the first type of algorithm, which is called as convolutional neural network. Now, convolutional neural network is like in each of the layers that you do, you try to transfer it and put it into a more compact but rich in information packages in every circle. So rich in information, compact, when we talk about all these cases, the application of CNN will be mostly in the case of image processing. So probably recognizing elements in identifying elements in an image, or satellite images or medical images and so on, will basically use your CNN algorithm. They are actually using CNN algorithm. So what is this CNN algorithm? we have few layers that we have to consider. Okay, as I already told you, there is an input layer that will come into picture, and then there will be an output layer that will go out. Okay, so now we are going to talk about the hidden layer, which is made up of 3 sets, 3 parts, and so on. Okay, so the first part is your convolution part. The next part is your rectified linear unit, okay, linear transformation, and the next part is your maximum pooling. Now, the convolution part is basically changing your data and making it more compact, which is your application of filter. Okay, now this hidden layer definition is applicable only for convolution layer, CNN. Please do not confuse it with RNN. Okay, so this is the hidden layer. Hidden layer there are 3 parts. The first part is your convolution part, where your input data is filtered, and then it is to perform the convolution operation, and it is provided with a better representation. The next part is your rectified linear unit, which will perform the linear in transformation of operation. Okay, so I'll just show you in the next slide what happens. And finally, the maximum pooling layer will convert the rectified information into a single dimensional vector. Okay, so why do we do that? I will show in the next layer. So next, these 3 layers form your convolution layer, and this layer will form the activation layer. Okay, the fully connected layer will form the activation layer, which is preparing your system for a output. Okay, so we'll just see it with a simple example. Now, this is an handwritten 8. I want to determine what are the, I'm going to predict what number this is. Okay, so the first steps will be to convert the image into pixels. Okay, 0 as black, and 256 will be the whitest region. Okay, so it is just basically converting it into pixel, and you have the pixel matrix here. Okay, so the first step is your convolution level. Usually your convolution level is denoted by this. This is your input. This is the filter function. So you basically multiply these two to get an initial level Z. Okay, so instead of traversing the entire pixel as such, you are dividing it, or you're filtering it into a smaller pixel, where you're concentrating all the data into a smaller pixel value. So that is what is happening. So imagine this is your original matrix, and this is your filter matrix. Now, filter matrix is randomly fixed. Okay, and it can be if you have a back propagation model, what will happen is this filter will be reset. I'll tell you what this back propagation is. Okay, so basically you're converting this whole matrix into a 2x2 matrix. Okay, because you're applying this filter. So what happens is, you will first take this segment 1 into 1 plus 7 into 1 plus 11 into 0 plus 1 into 1. So these 4 are first taken and then multiplied. Next, you are taking this section 7 into 1, 2 into 1 plus 1 into 0, and 23 into 1. Similarly, you will take this section. Okay, you will do the multiplication operation, and finally you are taking this section and doing the operation. So your initial 3x3 matrix is now converted into a 2x2 matrix by applying the possible filter. So this is your transformation function. So here the transformation function is a simple matrix multiplication. Okay, it can be different for different algorithms, but in mostly in CNN, what we do is the transformation function is a multiplication with a simple filter function. Okay, so if the dimension of the image is n cross n, and if the dimension of the filter is f cross f, then finally the dimension of the output will be a transformed matrix, which is of size n minus f plus 1. Okay, square matrix. Okay, so this is your first step, which is your transformation step. Okay, now what we are doing is, we are converting this matrix into a linear vector. Okay, the matrix is nothing but 2 cross 2 matrix. I mean 2 cross 2 list, okay, or an array. We are converting it into a vector, which is a list, single list. Okay, so this is basically why we do it. It is computationally more easier to do other operations. Like say for example, if it's just multiplication, then you applied matrix multiplication. What if you're going to add weights to it and bias to it and so on? So in order to do all that, we are converting it into a single matrix. Now we are going on to the next step, which is your linear transformation. So initially you had a way of filtering it out and changing it to one form. Now we are going to apply a linear transformation function to make it into a more presentable or more applicable to real world. Okay, so இப்போ வந்து முதல்ல வந்து z வந்து input and filter order multiply pannom. Okay, that was very simple. Okay, now we are going to add certain weights to it to be able to respond to more real world input. Okay, so that condition is here given as z is equal to wt into x plus b. So in case this is your input data, in the last case we had four input data, the weight will be each weight for 2 labels. Okay, your output is actually a label, so there are 2 labels. Then the weight will be 1 input to 1 output, 1 input to the second output. So if this input is applied with this weight, it will probably land in the first output and so on. Okay, so this is the weight matrix. As you can see, weight is applicable. Weight is given for every input and every output. Okay, and then you have the bias matrix. Bias is nothing but adding little extra or a type of balance, giving to balance to the equation. So once you do this, you do all the operation, and then you will end up with a single z value for each of the label. Okay, so when you do the operation, you will end up with a single label value. So based on the label value, you can decide whether the label whether the input belongs to the first label or the second label. Now this was the linear transformation. This was the transfer function. இது எல்லாமே இது வரைக்கும் நம்ம பண்ண எல்லாமே transfer function. I'll just give an a recap here. So in the convolution layer, one second. So you have the convolution layer, you have the convolution of filtering it out, and then once you filter it out, you had the filtered matrix. So you're converting the filter matrix into a singleton set, and once you have the singleton set, you are doing the linear transformation and converting it into probability values. Idu vandu CNN oda transformation step. Now preparing your CNN for other unexpected input will be done by your activation function. So in this case, we are going to use an activation function which is called as here in this case, this is a sigmoidal function. Okay, so this is a sigmoidal function in the sense your data will either belong to 0 or 1. Any if your input data is given to this equation, what happens, z value that we calculated, right? So we can, initially if your data is divided, is segregated along the curve, when you apply the sigmoid function, it will be more prominent either to this corner or that corner, either to 0 or 1. Okay, so when you're applying a sigmoid function, you are making it more diverse to whether it belongs to 0 label or 1. So sigmoid functions are usually used in binary classification because it belongs to 0 and 1. Okay, so unga result வந்து அப்படி ரொம்ப segregated இருந்ததுனா அத வந்து இன்னும் group in order to group your result, you can go in for your sigmoidal function. So this is the activation part of your neural network. Say I already told you, hidden layer has 2 parts, your transformation function and the activation function. Different algorithms will use different transformation functions and different activation functions. The combination can be different, but எல்லா neural networks லயும் இந்த ரெண்டு function கண்டிப்பா இருக்கும். Okay, so in this case, the activation function used is sigmoid function. So you're just making a simple change. So finally, this is the max behind your CNN algorithm. Meaning, given an input, you have the first convolutional layer where you change your x into a particular filter and call it Z1. Next level, you are making an A1 sigmoid, okay, preparing it for diversity. Next step, you are doing the transformation. okay, which is nothing but you're converting your A1. Why we change this Z1 to sigmoidal function is basically to segregate it, okay, to dispersed, your results will also be dispersed. So instead of doing that, we are doing a segregation operation here, and Z2 will do the linear transformation. Once you get the linear transformation, when you apply the sigmoidal function to this, you will get an output probability of whether it belongs to label 1 or label 2. Okay, so this is the idea behind your convolution neural network. So ivlo nero neenga gavanikkalanalu paravailla, but just keep this in mind, because when you go in for implementation part of it, your framework itself will take care of all these convolution checking, matrix multiplication, or probably the computation part of it will already do. Okay, so neenga or paper, when you're writing a research paper, you might have to explain what happens inside this, or you might have to explain it to your particular input. Say for example, your paper is talking about object identification. You're identifying, say, probably tumor cells in a medical MRI. Okay, so what happens? How is one image changed to a next image? What happens here? It needs to be explained in your paper. Only then your paper can be strong, can be sound, technically sound. If you don't explain any of this and you just tell them that you're using TensorFlow and I give this input and then I get an output, your paper will not be technically strong. And I think that's why people reject our papers, because that internal understanding of the concept is not there. So when you're dealing with CNN, the main concepts you have to keep in mind is we are talking about a transfer function and the activation function. The transfer function is basically preparing your input for the given application, what you're expecting out of the application, and your activation function is preparing your input for a more diverse set, probably extra noise or certain unexpected input. You are preparing your system for that type of input that happens in the activation phase. So this is the max behind CNN. I hope next time when you see these equations, I hope this is not going to be Greek and Latin for you. I hope you'll be able to understand some of it at least. Okay, so please don't be scared of equations. Even I have a total aversion towards equations, but please don't be scared of it, because once you understand the concept, these equations are just putting the concept into shorter versions. That's all. Okay, so this is the CNN. There is a concept called as back propagation. Okay, usually all your neural networks are from the input to the output, which is a feed forward network. But in some cases, what we will do, since it is an iteration, the output is sent back to the input. Okay, the output is sent back to the input, but in a different format. Okay, so where this format here is called as a error. Okay, here we are calculating a particular error. We are checking out the error in each of the stages. Once we have a complete error, we are putting that error into the filter and we are changing the filter for the next iteration. So what here, I just explained the max behind this. Okay, so usually what happens is in your convolutional neural network, we already know that filter value, we are fixing it. We are giving some random value and we are calculating for the input. Now the random value of filter that we fixed, is it okay or is it not okay? It has to be fine-tuned, should be decided by us, right? So how will we decide whether the filter parameter is okay or not okay? So from the output, we are tracking back. We are going back. Okay, so that is why it is called as back propagation. So from the output, I am taking the error value. Okay, partial differentiation of error from the output. And so for the output, for calculating this value, you are going back to Z2. Partial differentiation of Z2. Z2 in the pakam pona partial differentiation of A1. And if I go further here, I can get the partial differentiation of Z1. So finally, I'll be able to get the idea of partial differentiation of error with respect to the filter can be a dot multiplication of all the errors along the way. Okay, so what happens is I can calculate the new filter value as old filter minus the error rate, learning rate or error rate. Okay, so what is this error? என்னமா error சொல்றாங்க அப்படின்னு பாத்தீங்கன்னா, usually cost of a operation. Okay, say for example, this is a classification operation. You have a cost of an operation. There is a parameter called as cost function. Okay, so this cost function is called the this cost function should be as minimum as possible, meaning once the cost is as minimum as possible, that is the most accurate system that you can give. Okay, so when the if your error is at A, then okay, but if your error is somewhere here A1, okay, இப்போ இந்த A1 cost function வந்து I am telling A1 is the cost function. I don't know whether it is the minimum cost function or the maximum. You can still go further down. Okay, so in order to calculate that, we will do the operation of finding the slope. இதெல்லாம் வந்து நம்ம மேக்ஸ்ல வரும். So usually if your slope is negative, then you have to increase the value of cost function, or if your slope is positive, you have to decrease the value of your cost function. So in the cost function இருக்கு தெரியுமா, that is your gradient. Okay, so or that is the error that I'm talking about. So I will get a particular error. Say for example, at A1 I have an error. I will do the operation once again and I will get a new error, probably somewhere here A2. இன்னுமே இது வந்து minimum கிடையாது. I'll probably do the next iteration. I'll reach somewhere here A3. Okay, and finally I reach a point here A4, and after this, if my error point is increasing, then I know that this is the last step. After this, even if I change the filter value, my system won't produce a better result. Okay, so in the ஒரு gradient value A1, A2, A3 கண்டுபிடிச்சு you are running one more cycle, right? This is called as epoch. I think in your hands-on session you will see that each iteration that you do, okay, the cost function that is calculated at the end of the iteration, okay, is try to reduce and go on the next iteration. So this value of gradient that you're getting and going back and rectifying your filter, this process is called as back propagation. So you're basically going forward, you have an error value, you are trying to come back and rectify this error, try to bring it to minimum. It will never be zero, trust me, it is never zero. It will be some value, but at some point the cost value does not change. Okay, you will reach a saturation there. To reach that point, you have to keep coming again and again. So each iteration that you do is called as epoch. You can decide on the number of epochs when you implement it, or you can give it to epoch decision to it, and finally you will come to a conclusion where the gradient is as low as possible and your output is as accurate as possible. So this is the concept behind CNN and back propagation. So real-time example, as I already told you. So you can have a image of a cat, and you have to tell the image and give the grayscale image to the system. The system will find out their hidden layers. It will find out features for such as tail, ears, whiskers, and so on. It will try to recognize all these elements from all the pictures that it has. Okay, cat picture na kandipa anga vandu it will look for a ear or a whisker or an eye and tail and so on. So looking at a cat picture, it will try to identify these features. It will try to learn these features using your convolution network. So at the in the activation stage, it will also be prepared if the cat is facing forward or it's turned and facing back and so on. Okay, so all these characters are identified here, and finally when you give a new image, your system will be in a position to identify whether this is a cat image or not. This is the concept behind CNN. We are running out of time. I'll just give a quick recall to recurrent neural network and probably a framework 1 or 2, and then we'll finish. Okay, so I hope the idea is clear in convolution neural network. You have the input, you have the hidden layer divided into convolution layer and the pooling layer, and finally you have the output being decided by the fully connected layer. Okay, so in the steps in the function enala use aayirukku I already told you. But we are talking about, in convolution network, every individual model is functioning on its own. It is not dependent on any other information, right? So adanalada we are talking about image based systems are better suited for CNN. Whereas when you talk about text images, okay, predicting the next word in your question, Okay, or Google search la வந்து கடைசி set word என்னவா இருக்கும்னு predict பண்றது. Or you are talking about, say for example, translation of one word to another. Okay, so so many, I mean, all these information will need a particular memory of the previous word or previous information. Okay, so in the memory தேவைப்படுறப்போ convolution neural network will not work there. So for that, we are moving on to the next type of deep learning algorithm called as recurrent neural network. Now in recurrent neural network, we have one simple function that is used to retain the information, previous information. Okay, so recurrent neural network will have one extra loop inga irukku theriyudha. So this loop will is nothing but something which is going to retain the original state. So mostly for sequential data, say predictive data and the madri natural language processing information and the madri irunda, if you are going for deep learning, you should definitely go for RNN and not CNN. Okay, so this is the idea there. Okay, so here it is. So what is this loop that I'm talking about? Okay, அங்க ஒரு லூப் காட்டினேன்ல, அந்த லூப்னா என்ன அப்படின்னா, instead of just moving just like that, what will happen is it will keep the information of hidden data, previous hidden data also. Okay, so every time you move forward, you will keep the information of the previous data also, and whether to keep it or not and to drop it, adala vandu next condition, that is in LSTM. Okay, but anyway, this is the main difference here is that you are considering the state of hidden state, previous hidden state also. Okay, so there are few types of RNN problems, a one-to-one problem where you given the image and translate the image. This is nothing but a person sitting with a guitar. This is just an one-on-one information. Then there is many-to-one information. So if given a review, you have to classify it whether it is a good negative review or a positive review. And you can also have many-to-many information, mostly used in translation process, where a sentence and given in another information, I mean in another language, needs to be transferred to another language. Okay, so these are different types of RNN problems, or different types of problems where RNN is used, mainly because it is considering the concept of sequential data. So this is the max behind it. Rumba detail lam pole. So I'm just telling you, anga Z calculate panola. We calculated Z as the input multiplied by the filter, right? So here what happens is, instead of just keeping the filter, you are also considering the previous state. Okay, so that is the main difference here. The current state can be calculated as a function between the previous state as well as the input. Okay, so each time you do that, it is called as time step. So each calculation will be a time step. So here, this is your function. So the function is done using your tan h here. So now tan h is also similar to sigmoidal function. Only difference here is the values can lie between -1 to +1. Okay, so basically you're adding weight to the previous state and weights to the input, and you're calculating the current state probability or whatever current state value. Okay, once the current state is calculated, then you can find out the output state by multiplying it to another weight value. So this is the simplest max that you can, I mean, max behind RNN. Since we are running out of time, I'm rushing here. Okay, so if you want to rectify this, you will probably add a maximum soft max, or find out the maximum probability, and that will give you the value for the result. Okay, so the steps involved: given the input, you will identify the state based on the previous state, and then you will multiply it with weight. So in case of BAP propagation, you will keep adding the weight. Any error that you find in the output state will be added to the weights. Okay, so this is the idea here. I'm just rushing up. So another, LSTM is nothing but a small modification to the RNN algorithm. LSTM also keeps in memory the previous state, but here it is a long short term, meaning not just the previous state. I can keep information some 10 or 15 states before itself. Okay, so what happens is the information is carried out to the next step, time steps. Each iteration is called as time step. So your information is carried out from one step to the other. Okay, so using certain functionalities. Okay, so in case of long short term, your activation function is made up of, or your hidden layer. Okay, general ANN சொன்ன, you have input, output, and then hidden layer. This hidden layer is actually made up of 3 types of gate, which is forget gate, input gate, and output gate. I'm talking about LSTM, where LSTM will come into picture is mainly in your both your speech recognition or speech signals also it is coming. It will also come in natural language processing. The main advantage here is that it is able to retain information. It is able to retain information using 3 types of gate, which is forget gate, input gate, and output gate. Okay, so there's a max. I'll send out the PPT, but general information alone I'll tell you. Forget gate is the one which will decide whether you need to keep the information you have in hand or you need not keep the information. Say, for example, you are predicting, you're typing the word HELL and you want to predict what is the next letter that is going to come. Okay, so if you want to keep the information from the previous letters also, the kind of whether they belong to the vocabulary, their arrangement of digital elements, you can use the forget gate. Okay, so the forget gate value or the value here will become 1. Okay, if you do not want to retain the information, the forget value will become 0. So this is the forget gate's purpose. The next step, okay, that is the operation here. Okay, so it's just a simple sigmoidal operation between the previous state and the current input. Okay, next is your input gate. So you have the current input and then you have the other information, cell information, and so on. You have to identify what to do with the input. Okay, so here your transformation function will come into picture. So sigmoidal function and transformation function will come into picture. So here we are taking the tan H and Z. So given my input, what is the current cell state that I have? How to transform my input? This is this step, input gates. The next step is your cell state. So depending on the previous cell state and your current state, you will come up with the cells, activation process or a particular, how it has transformed. Okay, the transformation process can be shown here. So from the previous state and also the input from here, you will be able to come to a current cell state. And finally, the output is decided using your cell state as well as your input state. Okay, so given your input and cell, when you multiply it, you will come back to an output. Now, this is a very complicated computation. Just I'll put it into simpler terms. Okay, so what happens is I have a forget gate. Okay, I'll go back. I have a forget gate, which is going to make the decision whether I need to retain an information or not. Okay, so long term, keep the information abdina, the forget gate will be placed to 1. Otherwise, it is 0. Your input will usually do the same operation of transformation. In this case, it is doing a combined operation of sigmoid as well as tan X function. And finally, your output gate is nothing but your activation part. Activation, we have used the cross of current cell state and the input. Okay, so basically this is the idea behind that. Probably your frameworks will provide you with all these operations. So all you have to decide is whether to retain the information and the type of input that you are giving. So finally, once you finish all that, you will end up with an example. So say, for example, this is your customer review that you see. Okay, so you're looking for a cereal to buy and one of the reviews was written was amazing, perfectly balanced breakfast. The box of cereal gave me perfectly balanced breakfast, so on. Okay, so tomorrow if I ask you whether you want to buy that cereal, you will not remember exactly what the review points were. All you could remember is few words, right? Amazing, it was best balanced diet, and so on. So these 2 words are enough to for you to make the decision of buying the cereal. Okay, the rest of the information that was present was not required to retain. Okay, so these words, this LSTM algorithm will know which word to retain and which word to drop. Okay, it will train itself such that this words will be retained. This word is necessary to classify the review as positive or negative, and it will retain that. Whereas these words are not necessary, so we will drop that. Okay, so your LSTM over a period of time, over collection of data, sequence of data can be gathered over a period of time, and from that you will be able to come back to a decision. So I think we are running out of time. We are almost out of time. So these three algorithms I really wanted to show you. So the main takeaway from here is that you have your convolutional neural network, which will be mainly used for image processing. And the idea behind there is that the hidden layer is made up of convolution and max pooling layer. Convolution, linear transformation, and max pooling layer, 3 layers. Okay, hidden layer or a hidden layer is made up of 3 layers. These 3 layers are necessary to convert the broad information into a more convoluted information to give better accuracy, and then this is done in an iteration. Whereas in recurrent neural network, what happens is the previous state information is carried over to the next state and the next state and so on. So a particular small amount of memory is retained, and hence this type of an algorithm can be used for a sequential data. And finally, we have the LSTM. LSTM is very common for text processing. People who are dealing with text processing algorithm can go for that, because LSTM has memory values associated with it. So it will be able to retain more information over a period of time. Although the calculation part of it seems a little complicated or little diverse than the convolution network, it is essential for it to give so many activation function, tan function, so that your data is accurate, your output is accurate. So I thought I can deal with frameworks, but I think we don't have time. So anyway, in the afternoon sessions, I think in the hands-on session, we will be dealing with Python framework. So I hope sir will give you an information. But I think hopefully from this talk of 1.5 hours, I hopefully you were able to identify what deep learning was, where and all we are employing deep learning, how deep learning algorithm is used, and when we can use deep learning for what. Okay, deep learning in the sense different algorithms that are used and when to use what. Okay, so I just dealt with only 3 algorithms. There are so many more. You can easily search the internet for what type of algorithm will apply for your application. Okay, say for example, if it's an image based application, what type of algorithm, maybe a modification of the CNN algorithm will work for that. Okay, so what type of algorithm will apply for you can be easily searched. And similarly, the other text processing algorithm, natural language processing algorithm, now the algorithms are also working for different languages, not just English. You can see it for Marathi, Tamil, Chinese, and so on. Okay, so all these informations can be easily found by you. And I hope the maths behind all these algorithms is not too difficult to understand. I hope I've broken it down into small parts for you to better understand it. And to some extent, at least you are able to identify, okay, this is what is deep learning about. Okay, if you can take that home today, then I'll be very, very happy. So thank you once again, all the participants and the management. So if there's any questions or any doubts, you can please raise.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah.
Participants, if you have any queries, either you can unmute your mic and raise your query, or you can put it in the chat window.
Good morning, ma'am.
Yes, good morning.
Actually, according to my knowledge, like artificial intelligence is the combination of this fuzzy logic neural network genetic algorithm, they say, right?
Yes.
So, like, can you precisely just tell me, like, what for this fuzzy? Because for fuzzy logic, we'll be using neural network. Even for neural network, we'll be using, all are interconnected.
Yes. Yes.
So there was a question raised for me, like during my interview, like what is fuzzy logic will do, and what for the neural network is.
Now, fuzzy logic is actually, as the name suggests, the fuzzy is your input is not, defined. You're not very sure this is what the input is. Okay, your fuzzy logic is trying to identify information from the input that you give. Okay, whereas this fuzzy logic is kind of like a basis for your neural network. Like say for example, if I have say a jumbled set of puzzles in hand, what will happen is your if I'm provided with if I'm given it to the computer, what it will try to do, it will first try to identify why I'm given this. Okay, and it will try to put it into an output, what is expected out of it. Whereas your neural network will think, how can, in the initial stages itself, it will try to think what I mean, how to arrange it in such a way that I can give a better result or a quicker result. Okay, so fuzzy logic is like do it, whereas neural network is do it, but do it better, do it within the stipulated time, or do it with better accuracy, more quicker. Okay, so that is the basic difference there, your fuzzy logic and neural network. But fuzzy logic, if you have seen the first paper in 1969, it has put the fuzzy logic as the basis for neural network. Okay, though they did not work on it fully, or I don't know if they've explained it fully, but this is the main basis behind neural network. But neural network will strive for more accuracy, whereas fuzzy logic is just finishing off the work. I hope
Can I take it
Thank
as
you, ma'am.
neural network is for learning and fuzzy logic is for decision making, like thing?
yeah, you can put it as fuzzy logic is for finishing the work, whereas neural network is for learning as you finish the work, something like that.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you,
Yes.
ma'am. Participants,
Ma'am?
any more questions?
Yes.
Ma'am, I'm just stepping into my research, ma'am. So from your talk, I clearly understood that machine learning, I mean, deep learning is much far better than machine learning. So now I thought of pursuing my research in machine learning, but now I have come to a thought that I can do in deep learning also. So is there any, it will be any use of doing in machine learning, or should I do in machine learning, or it will be better only if I do in deep learning, or machine learning after, while I complete after some 4 years or something, it will be or no use or something?
That's an excellent question. It happened for me also. Okay, so in my research, what happened was it was a time when people started talking about deep learning, and we had people from foreign universities come and give lectures about deep learning. So what I thought was, generally what happens is in our research they want novelty, so we have to do something before everyone does it. So I thought of doing it in deep learning, and I even implemented.
Okay.
What happened was my data was not sufficient, or was not eligible for that deep learning platform.
Okay.
So in that case, my deep learning gave me negative results, whereas my machine learning performed much better.
Okay.
Now I can't project the negative results as this is the best. Okay, so
Okay.
in this case, for my given data, machine learning was found to be much more effective than deep learning.
Okay, ma'am.
So we always, I will never, fully push machine learning aside, because machine learning is still in use. Machine learning can be used for very, small set of data, precise set of data. So hence, you cannot fully eliminate machine learning. I will still tell you, don't fully eliminate machine learning. Think of your data. Now, if your data can run using machine learning and it can provide you with better accuracy or results, and you are able to decide the feature set. Usually in case of text mining and all that, the feature set definition itself is a huge headache. You do not know what features to use and what features not to use. So if you're clear with your features, then machine learning you can very well go. Even when everyone is telling deep learning, deep learning, deep learning, you can still tell them that no, machine learning will work for me. Okay,
Okay.
in case your data is vast and feature selection is not is not sufficient, or features are not good enough, or you do not know what your features are, in that case you can very well go for deep learning.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. It's very clear. Very fruitful session, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yes.
Participants, any more queries?
No, sir. Good morning.
Yes, sir.
Ma'am, for regression analysis based problems, so what type of algorithms can be used?
Sir, for regression, I think depends on your data, but I think most of the cases LSTM is being used. Depends on your data. In case your data is visual, it's more like images or video processing. In that case, recurrent is not performing so well. But other than that, if it's like standard data, if it's like text based data, or opinion mining and stuff like that, I think RNN and LSTM are working much better.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Participants, Okay, okay, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. I
Thank you,
think
sir.
with a short period of time, you have prepared a lot because only last week we planned to organize this program. So within this short period, you have prepared a lot. The ultimate outcome of this session is that many people during the session itself, many people have requested for the recorded video. So we also assured that the recorded video will be available to them. So really great session, ma'am. Many have get benefited from this session. Thank you, ma'am. Thanks for accepting our invitation and delivering the session. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you once again, the management, HOD sir, the coordinators for giving me this opportunity. I'm much younger than all of you, but you still thought that this session would be fruitful. So thank you for approaching me. So thank you, participants. Thank you so much for your patience.
Thank you, ma'am. Dear participants, we can have a 15 minutes break. So by 11:15, we can start the second session. Stay connected, participants.
Sir, inform the timings in WhatsApp group and the chat box also.
Yes,
Let
sir.
them
Yes, sir.
join
Now
by
we will be.
11:15.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Sure. Arun Manikiraja, sir, can you just share the schedule on the screen, sir?
Okay, Chandra.